looking everywhere for you. You need to read this right now in private. It's really important.
Hello, this is Andrew Chaika, Section C2 Chief.
Andrew, I just received important news regarding the lodges in your section. We have to begin the operation immediately.
Is it what I think it is?
Yes. You may have received a small letter before with a briefcase. The password is 2937.
Okay, I understand. When does the operation begin?
December 20th, 8 p.m. It's in your hands now. Operation Ignite is a go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Operation Ignite. My name is Peter Stavropoulos, No-K Lodge Chief. I'm so excited to be here tonight and presenting this to you, along with the fellow chiefs of the state of Michigan.
All right, hello, everyone. My name is Zain Badro. I am the Lodge Chief of Agami Mangwan. I'm very excited to be here myself. I'm also excited to show off all of our work that we've done over the last few months. And I'm excited for all of us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Longo. I am the Lodge Chief of Ntepushope Lodge, and I'm super excited to see the culmination of 6 months of hard work finally coming together for you guys to all see.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zach Zlomek, Keisha Tech Lodge Chief. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight. Thank you for joining, and I hope you find something exciting out of today.
All right, and just so everyone knows, we will be answering questions after the presentation. So please save any questions that you might have until the end. And with that, we'll jump right into it. So when we first dove into these discussions, we wanted to set some goals for what we wanted our new lodge to look like. After some time, we just decided upon 3 primary goals. Our first goal, and probably the most important goal, is we wanted to keep our commute times low and reduce them for both events and or meetings. With a lodge that is going to cover about 40,000 square kilometers, it would be almost impossible for our lodge to survive if we were to only have lodge-wide events. Our second goal that we came up with was that we want to improve chapter operations. Our hope there is that all of our chapters post-merge will be able to function well and will be able to thrive with support coming from multiple levels, which will be discussed later on within the presentation. Finally, our goal is to continue to serve our community as well as scouts and Michigan camps. Moving on. So I know I personally have experience from my peers. I'm sure the other lodge chiefs can account to this, as many have raised questions about our merger. Will this be helpful or hurtful to us is a question I've heard. And these are legitimate concerns that have been spread around. And however, I'm here today to tell you that there's no doubt in my mind that we'll be able to benefit and even thrive from this merger. One of the ways that we will be able to do this is we'll be enabling new opportunities for our airmen through new access to events. Airmen will now be able to attend different events throughout the Lower Peninsula. For example, if someone from Chope wanted to go to an Agamemagwan event, they would be able to with ease now. Another benefit from the new lodge will be chapter revival. With an approach of bottom to top leadership, and with support from our new lodge, our chapters will be able to see prosperous growth, and we will see a revival of chapters that have seemed to die off over these last few years. Finally, airmen will have new opportunities for leadership. With our merger, many more people will have to step up to take charge, which will ultimately help our airmen through new leadership experiences. And with that, I will hand it off to Ryan, who will discuss dues and our event passes.
Awesome. All right. So many of you guys have been badgering the lodge chiefs about what are our dues going to be? Why can't I pay my dues? Well, it's time to finally put that to rest. So these dues may be higher or lower than what you're used to, but your 2021 dues are $18. So a quick breakdown of what exactly goes into these dues. So there is a national fee for our charter, which is $5. $7 of that, $7 of the dues goes back to contributing to our camps and scouting. $2 goes towards lodge functions, and then $4 of it goes back to the areas based on population. And the idea is that $1 out of that $4 goes to the chapters. Next slide, please. All right. One thing we are also looking up is a event/annual pass. It is broken down to 3 tiers. So the first tier, which you can get, is one that covers dues. It allows you to go to any 3 area events. So that means any area event across the lodge. And you get your area's event patch set. The second tier is including everything in tier 1 plus all lodge event access and the lodge event patch set. And then in the third tier, you get everything in the first and second tier. It covers all area and lodge events across the state, all patch sets, also including an exclusive patch for this tier. We thought this was a good idea because it allows people many options, and it's also an awesome fundraiser for money we can put back into your program in our lodge. Now I'm going to hand over the floor to Zach as he covers some of our new organizational structure.
All right, thank you, Ryan. So one of the things that you may have noticed, Ryan was talking about the area events. So breaking this up a little bit, we decided that it's going to be very critical to have a different style of approach to our lodge. So rather than just having a standard lodge board and then chapters immediately below that, we decided to add a new layer to it. So instead of just having chapters and lodges, we're going to have a chapter and then an area level and then a lodge level. So how this is going to work, all of the current 4 lodges are going to become an area, and then the whole state will become the new lodge. So this chapter structure, first of all, there's not going to be a major shift at the moment. There may be some case-by-case points that we'll address based on the chapters, but for the most part, chapter operations will remain the same, and this is something we're going to focus on heavily in our new lodge. So we'll have more opportunities for chapters to become involved with planning certain events and having more events for themselves, and just many more opportunities in the future. And for the leadership roles for the chapters, we have some recommendations that we're looking for each chapter to take on. So first of all, chapter chief, of course, and then the biggest one, unit relations vice chief. So this person will be focusing on working on the troop relations, reaching out to the units more often, and working with OA troop representatives. And this way it kind of builds off of the foundation of the OA, which in turn is the OA troop representatives. They kind of feed into our program, spread the message about the OA a lot more, and it has potential to bring a lot more people into our lodge to be excited about it. And finally, any other positions that the chapter deems necessary. So if you have other secretaries or whatever they want for your chapter, you are welcome to have your own. And now moving on to the area structure. So the area structure, it's going to be similar to the legacy lodges. So we have Agaming, Kishatek, Shopei, and Noke, they're all going to remain the same for the most part. The geography is still a little bit under consideration, but for the most part, we plan to keep most of the geography the same. So you won't have to switch areas unless you're in a few specific areas, but that will be delved much more deeply in the future. And how this area structure is going to work, they will still operate pretty similarly. They'll hold their own induction events. They'll hold fellowship weekends or work on service projects and fundraisers all within the area. So most of the operations from this level is going to remain the same, and you'll have the opportunity to also attend events from other areas. So as Aiden mentioned, someone from Shopei can go to Agaming, and then you can really go to any event across the state that you want. This way, it's going to bring some more unity to the whole lodge, so we still don't feel like 4 separate entities. You're going to have the opportunity to go anywhere. So if you live closer to an event in another area, you're welcome to go to that. So this will give you guys much more opportunities to experience what the operations are like in different areas, and you can have many more opportunities in the future. And looking at the leadership roles for this, areas will likely keep the same type of structure, but we have a plan for them in case they do decide they want to relook at their leaders. And then finally, looking at the lodge structure. So this geography will cover all 4 of our lodges that were currently in Section C2, so the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. And essentially, it's going to serve as an administrative and collaborative type of organization. And with that, we'll have a few different leadership roles. We'll have lodge chief, of course. They'll be the head of the lodge, working on the new goals and missions for the lodge as a whole. We'll have a vice chief of program who will be working on organizing our lodge-wide conclave and our lodge winter banquet. So they'll be the one in charge of hosting any lodge events and getting the committees together to work on those. We'll have a vice chief of administration who is going to be focusing on things like unit elections, working on vigil selection, and a few other things like that. And then another big one that you may not have seen in your past lodge is the vice chief of unit relations. So we're going to put a big emphasis on this one going forward. They'll be focused on working with the units, improving camp promotions, and just trying to get the word out about camps and really coming up with some very new innovative ideas that will create some more exciting events for you all to go to in the future. And this unit relations vice chief is also going to be focused heavily on the OA troop representatives. And lastly, we'll have a secretary and treasurer that will be covered a little bit later with our leadership breakdown. So we'll move ahead to our next slide talking about the committee operations of our lodge. So this is going to be a very big focus of our new operations, is figuring out how the areas and lodges can operate most effectively in a committee type of environment. So instead of simply one lodge officer being the one responsible for organizing events, they're going to be the head of a committee that is working on organizing that event. So for example, for the lodge winter banquet, the vice chief of program is going to have a committee for the winter banquet, and that whole committee is going to work on planning the event. So this way it gives you a lot more, all of you will have access to this as well. So all of the youth in the new lodge will be able to work on any committee and have input to the lodge. And this will definitely give you a good introduction to the lodge, an introduction to leadership, in case you don't want to take on an elected officer role at the time. So a couple of these committees will be led by elected officers, and this will be the Lodge Executive Committee led by the Lodge Chief, a Conclave, and Winter Banquet Committee. So those two are led by the Vice Chief of Programs, and then each elected officer is going to be responsible for their own committee. So these are just a few examples up here. And then lastly, we have some standalone committees that are led by appointed airmen. So these are committees that we feel are very necessary, but don't necessarily fall under the responsibilities of one of our elected officers. So we have a training committee, a graphic design, vigil, and ceremonies. So all of those will be headed up by someone individually that isn't an elected officer, but appointed by the lodge. So now we'll break it down a little bit more into how what this lodge structure actually looks like. So that's a lot of information coming at you, and probably a little bit confusing, but this breakdown, this will be published later, so you can see in more detail and more clarity in the future. But up at the top, we've got our lodge chief, and then everyone highlighted in red, these are lodge positions. Everyone in blue are area positions, and then everyone in yellow are the chapter positions. So we have our lodge vice chief of programs, vice chief of unit relations, vice chief of admin, secretary, and treasurer, who are all the elected lodge officers. And then the green boxed in area, this is also representative of the Lodge Executive Committee. So these are the voting members on that board, which also is composed of the each of the area chiefs. So Agming Chief, the Kishitek, Shope, and Noke chiefs will all be represented on the LEC. And then under each of these lodge officers, they have the specific committees that they're responsible for. So the vice chief of program works with their conclave winter banquet. Unit relations works with their specific committees, unit relations committee, and underneath them, they have some more, they have chapter representatives that make up their committee. So the unit relations vice chiefs of the chapter will all be on this one big committee, and then it'll serve as a nice communication standpoint for the officers to communicate with each other and really pass down important information going forward. And then under our vice chief of admin, we'll have a unit elections committee with the unit relations vice chiefs from the chapters as well. So they'll work with the unit elections and receive the new information about how the elections process works from that officer. And then our vigil committee, that squiggly line that you see going up there, that's representative of an individual chairman. So that's going to be headed up by someone else, but the vice chief of admin is overseeing to make sure everything is still happening within that committee. And then under our large secretary, we have our communications committee, which is going to be composed of all of the area secretaries and historians, so they can put a nice communications plan together and work on some branding within the lodge as well. And then under our lodge treasurer, we have our treasury committee composed of all of the area treasurers, and then finally we have our graphic design committee. So that's going to be focused on making patches, logos, merchandise, and everything like that. And then underneath them, we have the graphic design area committee. So they'll be focused on the same thing, but within their own area. And with that, I'll hand it over to Peter to talk about our new lodge identity.
Thank you very much, Zach. So obviously, this is probably one of the biggest things you've been promoting so far is the identity. Who are we as a state? Who are we as these 4 lodges coming together as one? Who are we and what do we represent? So, I mean, in the order, we still represent the same thing. We live for cheerful service. We live in service of others in fellowship. But who we are, who is our brand, is kind of what everybody wants to know. What's our name? What's our number? What's our mascot? All of that. And before we reveal all that, I would like to thank everybody who worked so diligently on this, especially the identity committee, made up of members of each of our lodges. Working so hard to figure out all different sorts of ways to understand what might be of benefit to put in as a possible logo, as a possible name, what numbers can represent us, all of that. And each committee in every one of these aspects worked so hard, but the identity committee worked on this specifically. And, you know, without keeping you waiting any longer, let's roll the tape. That's right. You heard it here first. Michigami 29, home of the Mastodon. And thank you to all of you who voted in the several votes that went out for the name, the number, and the totem. This is our new identity. This is who we are. We appreciate all of you guys for participating in this and so actively being involved. It's kind of an exciting new chapter in the essence of our state and in the decades and hopefully centuries to come. Now with that, well, Michigan 29, that's great. What are we doing this year? What's on the calendar for this year? Let's see that. So we got a couple things planned already. We've got in progress events that have already started planning. One of those is the new lodge election. Obviously, you heard Zach talk about all of these different positions and all of these different roles for everybody to fill. Well, when are we going to pick them? Well, in February, Section is announcing this ACT conference, a virtual conference. Following that, either late February or early March, we'll be holding the new lodge elections, where members will be able to run for these positions. This gives us plenty of time to learn the job description, understand what it's about, and really know what you need to do to run this new lodge. Following that, which will be part of the new lodge election, the new elected lodge's responsibilities, is the Lodge Fall Conclave. This will be taking place in September sometime. That will pretty much be our real big event for the year, to kind of end 2021 almost and get our fellowship together and understand what it means to be a lodge as such a large entity as the Lower Peninsula. And finally, following that, the other event that we have planned, which was already talked about as well, Winter Banquet, sort of an annual dinner wrap up for the year in December, to give awards, spread fellowship, and let everybody be together in Maryland. Now, how about trainings? What are we going to do for those, right? Well, looking at the calendar that we have scheduled now, already established originally with the ACT conference, a section hosted conference in February. The time is still to be determined. This should be a great experience to learn what it is to be in a section and do a whole lot more. And you can ask the section for any information on that. But then moving into LOD, our Lodge Leadership Development. Now, I know all of our lodges or currently areas already do that as their own area. But we also will be hosting one as a new lodge, as a state, sort of a larger scale LOD. And with that, we'll have our sort of planning meetings and understanding of what it means to be in this new lodge and do a couple of events and practice and exercises for the areas and for the lodge, and even for maybe the chapters to get together and be in fellowship and learn and experience what other areas have to offer and what we can do with each other that makes us a lodge, what unifies us as scouts. Now, with that, going into some of the miscellaneous items that we have sort of thought about, things that aren't really on the calendar, we can take a look at those. If you want to move on to the next slide, sort of awards and individual nominations. I know many people have been sort of curious about that, how that's going to work based on the new lodge, as I kind of already established LLDs, as well as the visual inductions and reveal inductions based on the areas. These are all events that will be planned and be done throughout this and next year, and next scouting terms to come. All events that we're hoping to sort of integrate based on areas and based on the lodge. Now, as far as awards and visual are concerned, that's another topic that we've sort of discussed, is we kind of want to keep it to the areas. It's a little more centralized, a little more localized, although there's still a little bit to go with that and to explore that we're still figuring out. And finally, moving into the first thing that I think I talked about in these slides, which is the elections. Is, okay, we have all these positions, we know when we're going to vote on them. Well, what's going to constitute that and what changes things? Well, as I said before, between February and March, we're going to host these elections. That'll be the sort of key point whenever this ACT conference takes place. But following that, we have this what has been called the Churchill Plan, which essentially is a national reorganization of the sections and regions almost, which can affect how we're going to run our elections. And part of that is sort of our roll down process. If you want to go for a higher position, then you begin to roll down and down and down until you get to a next level. So we wouldn't have an area election before the lodge election. But before we can really know when all that's going to officially take place, that'll sort of change as it goes. But we're planning for sometime in the fall to sort of put forward an election for this new lodge. And at the winter banquet, we will most likely swear them in as an official sort of signification that you are the lodge now. You are the leadership, and this is something that we're hoping to keep as a tradition and move through, going through the whole years to come. And I mean, with that, I thank you for your time. And I'll finally move it to Ryan Longo.
Alrighty. So we're offering a really awesome opportunity for all of you to share your artistic skills. This is not because the Chiefs are terrible at making patches. It's because we want your input. But what we're doing is we're offering a patch design contest to the entire lodge. So this is your opportunity to really, you know, make a difference and leave your print on the new lodge. You get a lot of creative input in here. We only have a few guidelines though. It just has to fit within the template. It has to contain the lodge name, number, the 3 W's, a fleur-de-lis, and then a reference or drawing of the lodge totem. And basically what you do is you'll end up submitting this design to patches@michigami.org by January 16th. There's a bit more to the contest, you know, just details submitting what you need to do. But there's going to be flyers going out about that later on. And that information will be available soon. And you'll get to figure out where that information is going to be. Next slide. Awesome. All right, so what you see in front of you is multiple QR codes you can scan with your phone. So contained within them are the links to our Instagram and Facebook page. Please follow them and share them with literally every arrowman you know. The more the merrier. Until the website, michigami.org, is kind of put together and completely up, all the important information is going to be posted on our Facebook and Instagram pages. So make sure to visit them. As you can see, there's one more QR code on there. That is the link to our new Lodge dues page. You've asked for it and it's here. So please, please, please go and pay your dues as soon as possible. In fact, doing it after this meeting is a great time. Let your friends and family know. Now that I've kind of given you my spiel, we're now going to open the floor to a few questions. Through the live streaming service we're using, you can actually submit questions. We'll be reading them out and answering them. So ask away. Josh, can we get the first one?
Our first question is, will this video be recorded for offline reviewing by the chapters?
It's funny you asked that because it is being recorded and it's going to be posted on our Facebook page for you to look at later. And we're also going to include the slides with it so you can review any of this information and look back at it.
Our next question. What's going to happen with Section Conclave with there only being one lodge?
The section has actually asked us not to disclose any information at this time. However, I believe they are planning something for now. The section will remain for the next few months until further notice.
Will the MSU Seatbacks fundraiser continue?
I can probably answer that. It will continue. Where exactly those funds are going to go still needs to be decided by the finance committee. But other than that, we will still be doing it. Of course, it depends on COVID and stuff, but plan on doing it in the near future.
And just another thing to know with all fundraisers, we likely are planning on just keeping them how they are right now. So if areas are the ones that are doing all the work for the fundraiser, then they'll get the money for it. Same thing with chapters. And then if we decide to do any lodge level fundraisers, that money will go to the lodge. So for the most part, we don't have any intentions of changing any fundraisers.
How much will the event pass cost for each tier?
So for right now, we decided to sort of not put a dollar figure on that, as depending on the lodges, the prices change. It's something we're more looking forward to implementing in the future. So it's not something as a immediate sort of changeover right now. It could be anywhere from $100 to more, although that we don't really know for sure.
Will there be a Michigami Mastodon Tachyon that will replace the Turtle Tachyon?
Oh, Takashin. I can answer that. For any of you guys unfamiliar, Natapia Shope has a program called the Takashin program, and I'm sure there's many of you from Natapia Shope that have questions about that. That's currently being discussed on whether or not that's going to be carried over to the entire new lodge. However, I believe that you can implement that program within your area and keep it. And if they decide to make a Mastodon totem for that, they can go right ahead. But to be honest with you, that entire program hasn't been completely discussed within, our traditions committee, our awards committee. They're still kind of deliberating on that, and we'll probably get to that later. So not a ton of information on that right now.
Will lodge events rotate from camp to camp, much like we did with Section Conclave?
Yeah, for the moment, that's probably what our plan is. It's not something we've discussed in depth too much, and considering our section is still existing or is probably still rotating at the moment, we're not sure how that's going to turn out. So in all likelihood, we will rotate between lodge conclaves, and Winter Banquet will likely be in a central place like Lansing. So we'll try to keep it a fair system over the years, but I imagine we will do some form of rotation.
Will Tachyons be lodge-wide now?
Takashins, like I said, not determined yet. So we'll see. If you're interested in that and you have more questions, go ahead and direct them to my email at Natapia Shope, and I'll answer those for you guys later.
When will the new lodge patches be given out?
So at the moment, we have a timeline set up for our patch competition. So submissions will be due by January 16th, and likely we'll have the voting finished by the end of January. So that will give us probably a good amount of time. We'll do the reveal at our lodge election. So we'll do another big merger reveal. So we'll talk about some new things with the lodge, some updates based off of the merger committee, which will include the new patch, and likely probably sometime in February or March, we should be able to start distributing those.
When can dates for all these events be finalized so that troops can plan around them?
And so,
sorry, is that really good?
We're still planning on having an extensive planning meeting with all of the lodges pretty soon. So we'll go into more depth into each of those dates. So likely within the next month, I think we'll be able to have some dates on those.
When and how will the new dues be available to pay?
Ooh, I can
They're
answer
available right now.
Yeah, Peter knows that one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go on to the MCC website right now. That link is up. Or if you go back and if you scan that QR code, you can access that as well. And that link will be sent out on the social medias as well, on top of that. So they're ready to pay whenever.
Are we still a part of Section C2, or are we in a new section?
So I kind of touched on this. I guess wasn't really super specific, but it's kind of iffy. Right now, the section is the lodge. We're sort of the same area, same geography. But what's going to happen is, depending on this next year, they're moving through with this Churchill plan that can reshape how that's going to be. So for right now, it's the same geography, but moving forward, it's going to be just the lodge. At least that's how it's looking. It's going to go just the lodge going to be the state. The section will cover a new geography that's larger.
How do we pay dues?
scan the QR code, go to the MCC page, and look for the new lodge dues. Like we said, they'll be on social medias.
We'll all send out those links for the dues as well, from each of the lodges. So if you're not getting it right now, you don't have to do it just this instant, because this looks like there might be a couple questions about that.
Will there be a lodge mascot that will be at events, if we have one?
I believe that is the hope. We haven't really discussed this yet because it's not 100% pertinent right now, but I think it'd be a good idea.
Why area, parentheses, subset of the region, end parentheses, and not zone? Area may cause confusion, question mark?
Well,
I mean,
we
it's
have
what
been
we
looking
keep
at different names.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Peter, sorry.
We just been calling them areas. That's sort of what we started with. It seemed like that was just what it is. I guess if there is any confusion, we can try and clear that up in some way. I think the more we use one term, the more people will get accustomed to calling it that.
And we'll also likely keep the same names. So we would still have Kishitek area, Noke area. So we'll probably refer to them as those specific names in the future. So they'll probably reduce some of the confusion a little bit.
Will there be an upgrade from the dues payment to the event passes that are being considered?
Yeah, that will definitely play a factor. So if you've already paid your dues, once the event pass goes live in January or February, then you will get a discount for it. And just another thing to note on that, the event pass does include your dues as standard. So in the future years, if you pay your event pass, that will also cover your dues.
What if we can't use the ID codes to access the dues paying? Will there be a link on the website?
Yes.
We'll send out a full email with all of the links to all of our social media, to the dues and everything, and just kind of recapping everything we talked about today. So you'll all receive that within the next couple days.
Will there be full lodge competitions between chapters?
So what I think you're saying is having all the chapters in the lodge have competitions against each other. To answer that, what we're trying to do is by splitting up the new lodge into areas, we're trying to compartmentalize all the chapters so they kind of fit into their own areas, and they're going to be kind of competing against each other. But there's definitely opportunities for us to do inter-area competitions and all that. So, yeah.
Are the areas going to assume responsibility for providing services to camps for 2021?
I can speak on that also. So it's kind of a mixture. So the idea behind the areas is they kind of adopt a camp and they take care of it. They sponsor a ceremonies team, but the thing is they also get support from the lodge. So we have existing structures in the lodge that will assist those ceremonies team, assist with supplies, assist with camp promotions. So it's kind of like each area takes care of a camp with support from the lodge.
Can you send a link via Lodge Master to pay dues?
Yes.
So
What will happen to the chapters in the lodges?
I think Zach already kind of talked about it, but the chapters are essentially remaining the same. There's
They
nothing
will
with those.
So ordeal candidates can complete their ordeal at any lodge ordeal event or just in their area?
any area. Yep, that's part of the great benefit of our new lodge. You can go to any area event. Ordeal candidates can do their ordeal anyway, so that will also open up some more flexibility for them. So instead of just having a couple lodge events for them to do their ordeal event, they'll be able to have a much much more variety in terms of their schedule. So this should reduce some schedule conflicts. So if they can't make any of the induction weekends, they can go to a different area. So they may have to drive a little bit longer, but it at least opens up the opportunity to go somewhere else.
Will 2021 dues cover cost of new lodge flap?
Yes, currently that's the plan. Yeah, as we're for all of our new lodge members, it will cover that. In the future years, it likely will not, but for this year, it will.
Will the patch contest actually be a contest, or will it be fake, like the council CSP contest?
All right, I'll answer this. So this was a thing that we kind of encountered with our totem. You know, how do we make this fair, and how do we make sure that everyone's voices are heard? So obviously the voting's all anonymous, so it's kind of hard, you know, to prove that we did this legitimately. My answer to this is, you know, we're scouts. You know, the first part of the law is to be trustworthy. And we promised you guys that, you know, when we put this vote out, we're actually listening to you guys, and what you vote for is what you're going to get. We're not going to choose this based on what the chiefs solely like. We want to hear what you guys have to offer. We want to see your artistic skills, and we really want to see a unique lodge flap. And that's going to come out of you guys, you know, entering these into the contest. So my answer to this is no, we're not going to lie. We're not going to pick one purely because we like it over the others. It is a democracy, and it is your choice. It's your lodge.
And this is definitely something we discussed in depth. We looked at what the council did. We learned from their mistakes, and the identity committee has been working a lot with us to understand the best process for it. So we have a good process implemented to make sure it's a fair and legitimate vote on the patches as well.
What's going to happen to the chapters?
So again, the chapters are still going to be the chapters. The geography will remain the same. Their hierarchy might change in terms of recommendation of how we want the boards to be structured, but that doesn't mean anything. So in essence, the chapters will be the same entities they always have been for these past however many years.
Is it business as usual at the chapter level?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. Way to put it.
Could you add the QR codes to the Michigami.org site, particularly the dues one?
Yeah, I will get into contact with our internet committee. Those are the guys setting up the website. And we'll make sure that the links and possibly the QR codes are added onto it. They might actually already be on there, but you know, the site's under construction still, so give it some time. But those will be coming out on social media and emails before the website's ready.
Are the areas keeping their names and totem?
That's the current plan. Yeah, so we're still going to look at geography a little bit, but for the most part, we're all leaning towards keeping similar geography, same names, same totems.
Can you remind everyone what Michigami means and what language it is in?
Michigami stands for Michigan. For those who may not have seen that, I believe it is in Lenape, if I'm not mistaken. However, I may be iffy on that.
It might be a Ojibwa.
I will look it up, but I believe it's Land of Great Water, the direct translation to it. But I will look.
Can we obtain a live mastodon for all lodge events?
If you can find one, then sure.
I don't know if we have enough funds to build a time machine, but go ahead. I just got a little voice in my head just told me to tell everyone what a mastodon is. So if you guys don't know what a mastodon is, it's basically a woolly mammoth, but not a woolly mammoth. It was back in the Ice Age. They actually just found a fossil of the mastodon not too long ago in Michigan. It is the Michigan's fossil, the mastodon. Yes, I'm struggling today, but that's why it was included on voting for our totem, and we just thought it looked sick.
Will the lodge have a mascot at events?
Hopefully.
One thing to kind of consider when thinking about little things like that, we're still going to be a new lodge, so a lot of this similar to the area pass. It's fun stuff that we like to introduce and fun things that we'd like to do, but they won't be the first things that we're prioritizing. So is there going to be a mascot? If we can continue to do events and do things, most likely then yes, but not in the near future. But moving forward through the lodges, it's very likely. Just like a lot of other things that we might consider.
Will there be ordeal inductions done at summer camp or just done at conclave?
I mean, it depends on your camp's program, but if your camp has previously done ceremonies, I believe they will continue to do so, and that will be open to any arrowmen in our lodge.
How will area events work?
So area events essentially are like the current lodge events. So you go to a lodge conclave, that's either Tepe, Agami, Noke, or Kishitak. Similarly in that respect. However, now with this new lodge, with a little more responsibility, you can use them as sort of a third-party resource if you need help, as well as you can utilize the other areas, similar to how the chapters help each other in an area weekend or event. So really, these area events are going to run similarly to how the current lodge events run, depending on whatever area you're from, but with a little bit more help from other people now.
Will there be ordeal inductions be done at the summer camps or just done at area events?
Both. They'll be done at either.
If the lodge was a type of cheese, what cheese would it be?
I don't think I'm allowed to speak on this one as I have a dairy allergy, so I'll leave it to you three.
Could we say Swiss because it has many holes in it and it's uncompleted? I don't know what answer to give that question, but thanks for asking it.
I think that's fairly fitting, yes. We definitely have a long way to go, but it is still a good cheese already.
If we can't get a live Mastodon to be at events, can we get the band Mastodon to play live?
Well, we'll see about that.
Are LECs going to be online only?
You want to speak on that, Zach?
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be up to the new lodge board, or the existing lodge board in the future. I imagine it's probably going to be some type of hybrid system, so there'll probably be some people meeting in person, but there will definitely be an option to call in virtually. And I think that's kind of representative of where we all stand right now. We are all much more familiar with virtual systems, so I'm sure we'd be able to set up some type of virtual conference system in a hybrid type of scenario in the future. Yeah, and as Aiden mentioned, that being one of our goals that we want to reduce commute times, we'll definitely keep that in account for our new lodge officers.
Will Michigan truly be a democracy and not a monarchy?
Yes.
I mean, one thing that we're sort of priding ourselves on with this is that now we are a lodge. That's something that I know a lot of people kind of don't really understand, but now that we're merged and we are a lodge, what do you look at your lodge now, and what does that mean to you? It's a fellowship of members that come together and do for the better. And in any sense, in scouting, we try and pride ourselves on only really focusing on triple service for others and living in fellowship with others. So yes, this will be a democracy, so to speak, even though it's more just a group of volunteers doing what they can to help others. But when it comes to making decisions, that we hope that by going through and doing the events that we plan and coming together and realizing that we are a lodge and what that means, it'll create a more unified approach to how we do things and create that sort of sense of no one's really better than anyone else because we're all the same, I guess.
And in terms of elections type of things, like we did for the patch, for the identity voting, and what we'll do for the patch voting, and for our future lodge officers, we're still going to have a representative type of voting system. So if you've seen the section officer voting, we'll do a similar type of thing. So each lodge will have a proportionate type of vote. So not one lodge will have an unfair advantage. So Noke, they have a vast majority of the population in our new lodge. They won't have all of the power. So there'll still be a fair distribution amongst the existing areas.
Can you again explain the history behind the lodge number?
Peter?
So funny enough, 29 actually does come from the first lodge in Michigan. That was sort of the initial intent with why it was brought up as one of the options. It is a huge legacy number. And I mean that as it does hold a century of legacy behind it. It was pretty much the first number that what represented Michigan, and that has created what we are today. And I guess if you really want to look at it, I don't know if it's considered superstition or whatever it may be. We've kind of come full circle with that, from going to one lodge to 4 lodges, or to 6 lodges to 4 lodges to 1 lodge, back again in a full circle.
What was the thought process behind having more LEC members made up of the lodge board members than representatives from the area?
So I think for this one, so we have more lodge officers than we do area officers. I think that's what we're getting at. So the intent behind the lodge, it's not necessarily going to make any major decisions for the areas. The areas are still going to have a lot of opportunities to create their own decisions and vote on their own types of things. So the voting at the lodge level, that's going to be for lodge level decisions. So when it comes to any type of decision at the lodge, it's not going to necessarily impact the areas directly. So the lodge officers will be able to make that decision, whereas the areas are mostly focused on their own operations. So that's kind of how we're looking at it right now. If we see that we need more area representatives in the future, then we may readdress that.
What happened to the lodge's funds?
I can speak on that. So obviously, when you merge 4 lodges into one, you have to take into account finances. So each of the accounts have a bank account that is, the MCC holds that money for us. And what's happening right now is, because we're going through a process of merging those together, the lodge funds, we're not supposed to kind of spend outside of what we already decided for our budgets. And what's going to happen in the end when we finally merge together is it's all going to be merged into one account that the lodge still has a hold of.
What is the difference between a mastodon and a mammoth?
I believe mastodons are more of a North American subspecies, where I believe a woolly mammoth is the entirety of the species.
Will chapter level officers and advisors or not official airmen be able to attend LECs?
So all LEC meetings for any lodge should be public and available for anyone to see, because obviously we don't hold any information from people. And it's important that people, at the chapter level, at our most important level, see what's going on at the top, because a lot of those decisions can affect them. Obviously, I don't know exactly what the new officers are going to do or choose, but I believe that they'll have it open for any general members, or if there's an unofficial member that wants to watch what's going on. But that's all up in the air. But I have a pretty good feeling.
When will we begin seeing dates for ordeal dates?
Those will likely be within the next couple months. All of the areas we'll get together, figure out our extensive calendar with all of our dates pretty soon.
Will there be area events for helping camps?
For the most part, I would say that's up to the areas. First of all, induction weekends at ordeals, that is definitely a big part to help the camps. And then, as you saw in the dues, $7 of that goes towards helping the camps. So those are going to go towards service projects in order to create more meaningful projects for the lodge. So we have during our ordeals, during other service weekends, we're going to have a lot more funds to do more exciting projects. So there definitely will be opportunities for areas to do that. How they go about doing that is going to be more up to them.
Can we go back to summer camp callouts?
I believe we are never leaving them in the first place.
Yeah, so one thing I can speak of from my lodge, I imagine it's true with some others as well. The national policy on unit elections is that you have to complete your ordeal within 1 year. 1 year of your election, so not 1 year of your call out. So in the case for Keisha, we used to have 2 ordeal weekends before any of the summer camp started, and we only had 1 ordeal weekend after summer camp. So that would really only leave everyone elected in January through March only one opportunity if they waited until the summer camp call out. So that was one of the reasons that we didn't like doing that as much. We try to encourage troops to notify their elected members sooner. And this is something that we'll also try to encourage chapters and areas to do in the future, is holding call out events of their own. So that we'll be able to still have the official type of call out ceremony that gives you the very cool surprise, but you don't have to wait until summer camp and miss those opportunities. So in the near term, considering that national policy has changed for people who elected for 2 years from their election because of COVID, I'm not sure if that will last or not, but there may be consideration to change that. And since ordeal candidates will now have the opportunity to go to any area, we might consider having the troops, the units wait until summer camp, but I guess that will be something we'll talk about a lot more going forward.
Are you willing to change your designation of area to zone so you don't confuse Area 2 of the Central Region with the landmass of the old FSCs?
Well, obviously we discussed this earlier. If we need to change the and I can't speak today, man. All right, the designation of what our middle layer of structure is, then we'll do that. I don't think it's all that important, but obviously if it causes conflict, we'll deal with it. So thanks for asking the question.
Will patches be approved before they're created?
Depending on what level the patch is going to be made at, it will have to be approved by that board. Just like how currently the LEC for any lodge would approve a patch set. Yes, that's how we're going to run it. Just depends on what level it's approved at. That board will take care of the approving and denying of that patch.
Will the youth have the final say in LEC affairs?
I mean, yes, that's essentially what LEC represents is a group of youth members with advisors to advise. But ultimately, yes, the youth will and still do have that decision in the end.
Can we buy patches online?
That's something that the finance committee has actually been working on. That's something that we'll talk about a lot more in depth going probably at our February event. We are looking at working on an online store so you can get items shipped directly to you. So that's something we'll go a lot more in depth into later, but there likely will be some opportunity to buy merchandise for the new lodges and areas online.
What is the plan for the Vigil members going forward? Do the areas get to pick them, or is everyone put through the lodge as one nomination process?
Right now, we're per national policy, we have to direct them in the end result through the lodge, but at the moment, we're still thinking that areas will get a proportionate number of Vigil members. So if No-K has 50% of the people, then 50% of the overall lodge population, then they'll get 50% of the Vigil candidates. So that's likely how we'll still handle it. And then areas will probably choose their own, and then it may be approved at some lodge level committee, but the specific details of that will be determined later.
Who are the new lodge officers? If no answer, then when will that be announced? How are they being
that was
selected?
discussed earlier in the slides. We will be electing those positions in February, possibly March, whenever following the ACT conference that section's hosting. So by then.
Will all of the former large totems be homeless?
Maybe. I believe the areas can still utilize their totems if they feel they want to or want to continue doing that. It was something created by those people in that area, and they should still have the right to use it if they want to. So, by all means.
What will the new totems look like?
Well, right now we have the logo already sort of designed, but through the patch design and sort of how we continue this, don't really have a definite answer, but that's kind of why we would like for the rest of the youth and adults or whomever else can utilize graphic design, things like that, to create what they look like. Most likely something with a mastodon, but that's just sort of however the voting runs from the patch competition and then moving forward from there.
What if we have already paid 2021 dues, in our case, for No-K?
So I think I can speak on that. So I had spoken earlier with my advisor. We had talked about we had a paid forward option to go through the year's dues. Those should be covered for what you paid. We'll have to discuss that further and let you know before the beginning of the year, hopefully. But you should be already set for this 2021 if you've done the paid forward.
Are we considering being host lodge for the next NOAC?
Well, that's something that isn't necessarily under our control. That's a national decides where NOAC is going to be held, and then I believe they were planning on doing it at MSU, and if they still continue to do that at the next NOAC, then we technically will be the host lodge, which may involve some responsibilities, but yeah, that's not really much of our decision. If we're asked to help, I'm sure we will definitely offer our service.
What is the LEC?
The LEC, so the LEC stands for the Lodge Executive Committee. So this is the, so at the top of, kind of the chain of the command for the youth in a lodge, you have all your lodge officers, you have your lodge chief, and in our case, you'll have your area chiefs. Normally, like smaller lodges will have their chapter chiefs be on it, and then committee chairs. But it's just the youth that are making the decisions for the lodge. They're the people that decide, what patches are we going to use, who's in charge of what, those kinds of decisions.
Will there still be section conclaves?
So technically, yes, although we won't be the same section. Depending this 2021, that schedule is kind of iffy considering the section is still the current area that it is. There's Keynesian geometry. overall, yes, there will be section conclaves still. How they will run or who they will run through, and which areas or which sections will be a part of, that is another question that we don't know the answer to. But yes, they will still be running.
Will there be advisors at the area/zone/clan level?
Yes. The idea here is that every single youth position, for the most part, is going to have an advisor, like the elected positions will. So all your officers and your chief will. Any elected area position will. And then all your chapters should have advisors.
And one other thing to note on that, we likely will have a decision on our lodge advisor made by the council sometime in January is their current plan. So January 15th, I believe, is what they're currently targeting. So sometime soon we should have a decision on who our new lodge advisor will be.
What will the name of our new mascot be?
Nasty. I mean, we haven't really designed a mascot costume yet, so I can't really say we can put a name on it. Next question, please.
Will the new lodge do a sash and bash?
Sash and bash definitely could be something. I don't see why not. You know, I guess the only real issue with that is just the COVID stuff. But outside of that, I don't see why it wouldn't be an option.
I do want to make a disclaimer before we move on to more questions. So us four chiefs, we're kind of designing the structure of the lodge, the bylaws, stuff that goes into it. We're not necessarily making decisions about, specifically what kind of events we're going to have, what all of our programs going to be. That's up to the new lodge officers that are going to be elected in the winter and springtime. So try and keep your questions more related to the structure and what we talked about in the slides.
Our final question. Who are the lodge advisors? When will they be announced? How will they be chosen?
So lodge advisor, that's chosen through the council, through the Supreme Chief of the Fire. So that's nothing under our control. We did provide some of our input, some of the advisors we've worked with and other adults in the OA. So we had some input, we gave them some ideas and advice, but ultimately that decision is made through the council. And as I mentioned, that decision should come out sometime in January or shortly thereafter.
Alrighty, sweet. Yeah, our final question. Are we still live, Josh? Sweet. So I'd like to thank all you guys for coming. I'll give each of the chiefs, a second to say what they want. But thank you guys for sitting through, hour, 20 minutes of this. It really means a lot to us that you come to listen and that you're really invested in our new lodge, because it's the future of OA and scouting in Michigan. So all I have to say is thank you guys for coming. Zach, you got any comments?
Yeah, so first of all, a big thank you to everyone who's been involved with our merge committee. We have about 50 people or so very active in coming up with new ideas and decisions, and we have 8 different subcommittees. So all of them have been working heavily in coming up with new ideas and helping us make these decisions. So we have all of these people who have been extraordinarily involved. So a big thank you to all of them. We'll definitely have a nice recognition and close out once we officially get our new officers elected in February. And with that, thank you all for coming tonight. We're definitely working very hard to create some new innovative ideas that will give you great experiences in the future, and we're definitely going to strive to be the best lodge in the nation.
All right. Thank you again all for coming. I look forward to this new adventure down the road. Thank you again to all the subcommittees who have been helping out, They're doing a lot of work in the background, and you should all be proud of yourselves. Also, thank you to Josh Klein for helping host this event. And until again, I hope to see you all soon.
I think the chief said it as well. Thank you all very much. We really do appreciate you guys coming out and still being active and still showing that Scout spirit is still alive and still being enthusiastic about all this. It really is something special. You know, it's something that we really can't just let go. It's something that I know that I've had all my life, and I know many of you have as well. And this is just another chapter in the scouting book for Michigan, and it'll just keep going for on and on for hopefully centuries. And this can be the start of a great new legacy. So thank you all for coming, and have a wonderful night.